G'day guys. Today we're going to be installing a version of ArkOS specifically designed for these R36S clones. This clone in particular has internal flash, but it will try and boot from SD slot 1 first. Let's get into it. We're over on our Windows 10 PC now. So first of all, we want to download the ArkOS image for our R36S clone. So it's going to Google, type in ArkOS R36S clone. We want to go to the Reddit link, ArkOS for K36 and R36S clones. You may need to click read more. You want to scroll all the way down to the latest version, which is at the very, very bottom. This one here. As of making this video, it's from the 18th of January, 2025. We just want to click on it. On the GitHub page, we're going to scroll down and I'll download the Google Drive link. If for some reason that link doesn't work, you can try the Mediafire or Mega Mirrors. They should all be the same file. We'll also need a program that can handle GZ compressions. I like to use 7-zip. If you don't already have it installed, go back to Google, type in 7-zip, go to the top link, 7zip.org, and download the correct version for your operating system. Installing 7-zip is as simple as double-clicking on it and following the on-screen prompts. We'll also need a program that can write our ArkOS image to our SD card. I like to use Rufus, so again, back to Google, type in Rufus, and it's the top link, rufus.ie. Scroll down. I like to download the portable version so it doesn't need installing, which is 4.6p at the time of making this video. Once everything's finished downloading, we can close off Google Chrome and open up our downloads folder. Inside, we should have an ArkOS compressed image. Now we need to extract it. With 7-zip installed, simply right-click on it, go down to 7-zip and extract to. Once it's finished extracting, open up the folder to make sure it's in there, and it is. It's around 9 gig. Next, we want to insert our fresh microSD card. We'll be installing it too. I'm just using a cheap SanDisk 32 gig microSD card in a generic USB reader. Put it into the computer. We want to go back to our downloads folder and open Rufus. At the very top, under device, select your microSD card. If it's not detected, try a different SD reader. I've noticed SD readers that are built into laptops often don't show up since they are detected as fixed disks, which Rufus does not show. With the correct device selected, we want to go down to boot selection, make sure it says disk or ISO image, and on the right of that, click select. We want to navigate to our downloads folder and go to the ArkOS image that we extracted, not the compressed zip. It should be about 9 gig once again, and double click on it. Leave everything else the same and click start. Be aware this will format your microSD and you will lose all the files on there. So make sure it's either blank or you don't care about the files. Click OK. Once it's finished writing, we can click close. And we want to safely eject it from our computer. So at the very bottom, right click, safely eject. Now we'll put it into our R36S clone and boot it up. We want to put our microSD in the right hand side slot, which is slot 1. And we'll power it on. We saw the ArkOS logo, which is a great sign. Again, it says ArkOS on the screen. On the top left, we do have a blinking cursor, another good sign. And there it is. The initial boot didn't take too long, probably around 20 or 30 seconds. If for some reason you have a black screen through the entire process, don't panic. It just means you need to change these screen files in the boot partition. The devs were nice enough to include a variety of common screen files for us to try. If it was black, make sure you don't turn the system off straight away. Let it sit for around 1 or 2 minutes just to make sure it completes its initial setup. And after a few minutes, then you can power off the device by holding down the power button and putting it back into the computer. I will quickly go over how to change these screen files for those of you that need to. So out of the box, there's no games on it, obviously, but we do have our ports menu option and ScumVM and our options menus back. So I think now we'll power off the system and we'll copy some ROMs over to it. To power off, I like to go start, quit, shut down. Just putting our microSD card back into our SD reader, back into the laptop. If it asks you to format, make sure you click cancel. You do not want to format. Now if we go to this PC, we should see 2 partitions. Boot and EZROM. If for some reason you can only see the boot partition and not the EZROM's partition, you might just need to assign a drive letter. I have made a video on that, so I'll link it down in the description below. Another common issue is the EZROM's partition hasn't expanded. For example, if you have a 128 gig SD card. The EasyROM's partition should be pretty much close to that, but some people have reported it only being a few hundred meg. This is most likely due to ArkOS not completing the partition expansion on its first boot. You could try and flash ArkOS again to the same SD card and let it complete its initial boot, but if that doesn't work, you may need to resort to third-party programs. If for some reason your screen was black through the whole initial boot, double click on your boot partition and you should see a folder called Screen Files. These are the 5 most common panel types for the clones. So all you would have to do is select one of the panels and copy both files, Control C, go back to the root of the boot folder, so where you see all these files, and paste it here. When I ask you if you want to replace, click yes. I won't be, since it did work for me first time. If panel 1 doesn't work, repeat the same steps with panel 2, 3, 4, and 5. If all 5 panels don't work, make a post on the Reddit page where you downloaded the ArkOS image, and someone might have a boot file which will work on your system. So now we need to copy some games over to our SD card. We're going to open up our EasyROMs partition, and here are all the systems it supports. Copying games over is as simple as opening the system folder you want to copy the games to, for example NDS, and pasting all of your Nintendo DS ROMs in this folder. It would be the same for SNES, NES, Game Boy, etc. I think I'll go and copy a bunch of games to test, and we'll come back. I've finished copying all the ROMs over, so once again, got to right click on the bottom, safely eject the SD card. With that done, we'll pop it back into our R36S clone. Once again, just putting the SD card in the right hand side slot, and we'll boot it up. So it booted up, no issues, and we've got all our games on there. I also copied a few ports over from my genuine R36S ArkOS install, and we'll take a look at how well they run. If you don't have a genuine R36S, you can manually install these games offline. I have made a video on that in the past. We'll take a look at how well games perform on this ArkOS build. As mentioned, I did copy a few ports over, so we'll start off with Revolt GL, which does work perfectly. Next up, we'll try Vanilla Red Alert. This game almost works perfectly. Unfortunately, the mouse cursor movement is split between both joysticks. The left joystick moves it left and right, and the right joystick moves it up and down. It is a little bit confusing, but otherwise it does play perfectly. I'm sure you can change the key mappings in the settings somewhere. When trying to quit, the gamepad does lock up, so you will need to reset to get out. Finally, Super Mario War. It does seem to run perfectly now, but the very first time I tested this, it did get stuck on the NetPlay screen, and it wasn't accepting any inputs. But it does seem to work perfectly this time. This is definitely a massive improvement over the stock OS, and it even lets you run ports as you've seen. Performance was a lot better, boot times and game loading times were also greatly improved. There are issues when trying to use a dual SD card setup. Save states currently don't work, and when selecting read ROMs from SD2, it may instead try and load them from the internal flash, so it's best to stick with a single SD card setup on the clones. Since it is running from the SD card, if for some reason you want to go back to the stock OS, all you have to do is remove the SD card from slot 1 before powering on the system, and it'll default to booting back from the internal flash. When exiting out of any game, it does play a very short 2-second clip. I believe it's BMO from Adventure Time. The first few times you see it, it is quite charming, but after quitting out of multiple games, it can get quite annoying. Thankfully, you can disable it, but you will need to put your SD card back into your computer. I'll quickly go over how to do that now. So to disable the BMO animation that plays after quitting every game, it's super easy. We've just put the SD card back into our Windows computer now. We want to go to Easy ROMs. We want to go down to Launch Images. And there is a file called loading.mp4. You can either delete it, or I recommend just renaming it to loading.mp4.bak. Make sure you click yes. That should disable the little clip that plays, and now when you exit out of any game, it'll go directly back to the ArkOS menu. If you do want to enable the short clip again, simply go back to this folder and rename the file back to loading.mp4 and click OK again. I think that'll do it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.